Overdrive this week, we take a look at the Tata Harrier EV's road credentials and take the Tesla Model Y for a spin in our very own bustling Mumbai city. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I'm Soini Dutt. We've got a power-packed show for you today. Both are EVs and EVs that you're very excited to know about. Now, just a few weeks ago, we drove the Harrier EV and tested its off-road credentials, but we were left wondering what it would feel like to drive on Indian roads. Well, we have the answer now.
By now you already know that the Tata Harrier EV is priced from ₹21.49 lakh. You know all the tech it packs. You also know that it can handle itself decently well off-road. But you don't know what it's actually like to drive or live with in the real world, which is exactly what we're going to tell you in this video.
Out in the open, the Tata Harrier EV doesn't shout its presence like some rivals. Tata Motors has decided to pepper the ICE Harrier styling with its usual EV touches. So you will find a blanked out grille with the rich pattern, blue highlighting and the white Tata logo.
Now you get a frunk with the Harrier EV, even though this isn't what you would traditionally call a skateboard born electric platform, but you do get a frunk. And it's 17 kgs of weight limit and a 35-litre volume. But as you can see, it's quite shallow, so a backpack is a bit difficult to fit, but you will be able to fit the charging cable sort of box.
Now, one of the most striking additions over the standard Harrier are these large 19-inch aero-optimized wheels. They wrap around some chunky EV-specific rubber and give the Harrier EV a smart stance. The rear is similar to the standard Harrier, with the familiar rich pattern for the bumpers being the only change. So the Harrier EV has the presence and sharp styling of a modern SUV.
Now, accessing the boot of the Harrier EV is not as straightforward as I would have liked, to be honest, because to make this rear sort of powered tailgate work, you either have to have the key in your hand or have the car completely turned off, which I think is going to be a bit of a hassle, say if you're driving up to a hotel where your bags need to be checked and so on. But anyway, once you do open it, you will find that there is a bit of a ledge because that's hiding the spare wheel. So I think it's a fair compromise to make. Yes, the lip becomes very high in that regard. And while you do have 504 litres on paper, that's been measured to the roof. So in practicality, you can sort of put, say, 3 bags side by side, reasonably sized trolleys and a couple of maybe backpacks. So I think you will be able to manage a weekend trip.
The big change on the inside is the new 14.5-inch Samsung OLED screen for the touchscreen. It's slim, has sharp touch responses and has great resolution that makes it usable in harsh or low light. The interface is the same as in smaller Tata screens, so it's logical with important functions easy to access. The larger screen size makes this easier still. There's a 10-speaker JBL audio system with Dolby Atmos that's easily one of the nicer ones you'll find anywhere near this price range. The 10.25-inch driver's display is the same as in other Tata vehicles, so while it's logically laid out as well, we still feel the fonts could be larger. The capacitive touch climate panel is still not easy to use on the move. For example, changing the fan speed can get a bit difficult. But thankfully, at least the climate controls have a physical toggle. But the gloss black panels around it are prone to scratching easily. The Harrier EV is more practical inside than other Tata cars. The wireless charger is not easy to access, but it holds a phone in place well. You have 2 Type A and 2 Type C charge ports, one of which is 45 watts. The cup holders may not be the best shape, but you do get quite large door bins. As before, the terrain mode dials and paddles feel great to touch and seem a bit more responsive than in the diesel Harrier.
Now the back seat of the Harrier EV has been given a bit more importance than earlier. You have these side steps now, and with this flat sort of entry and the flat floor, getting in, I must say, is very simple. And yeah, with that new architecture, you have, like I mentioned, a fully flat floor, which makes things easier. And yeah, as you can see, I have space to tuck my feet in under the front seat. And I do sit in a slightly knees-up position because the floor has been raised. So even though generally the Harrier had good thigh support, in the EV it's been reduced a little bit. But as you can see, the back seat, the backrest itself is still quite comfortable. And if this kind of space just wasn't enough, then you have this new boss function, which I think, again, like I mentioned, for your city sort of commuting needs will be really quite nice. And as you can see, in its fully forward position, I really can stretch out, and with that theatre sort of seating that the Harrier made popular earlier, I really do have a nice sort of kind of throne kind of view out, which I think a lot of you will like. Now you get those really nice AC vents in the pillars and this big sunroof, even though from my height at least it doesn't eat into head space. You have those sunshades, 265-watt chargers, and yeah, this sort of armrest here.
One of the big talking points with the Harrier EV is its vast list of features. We only really missed a head-up display and a reclining rear seat back, but here's what you get with this electric SUV.
So we've had a little bit of a chance to try out the new low-speed active emergency braking in the Harrier EV. It's sort of a development of what's already available in the regular Harrier, and it lets you sort of use a lot of these ADAS functions at very low speeds. I must say that it's not very intrusive at all. It's quite calm. It won't beep and bong at you constantly. So in that sense, it's good. And it intervenes to the right extent for our conditions. So notice that it will give you a warning when, say, you're not fully paying attention to the car in front of you, and only seems to give you that braking sort of protection or assistance when you're really not paying attention, when you come really close to the car in front of you. So in that sense, I think it's been tuned well for our conditions, but I do feel like there maybe could have been a bit more consistencies.
You have a long list of other ADAS features here, but on the everyday, the parking assistant and summon mode may be some useful tech you could rely on. The Harrier EV has a 5-star B NCAP rating, which should provide some reassurance. The rear view camera is well executed. You don't strain your eyes a lot, although there could have been a choice to adjust its angle like in Range Rovers and not just a zoom function. Combined with the crisp 360-degree cameras and the blind view monitors, which now have a better resolution, placing the Harrier EV in traffic is a bit easier given the large blind spots around the C-pillar.
Well, we're not done with evaluating the Harrier EV on road just yet. Stay with us on Overdrive. More on this after this break. Welcome back. You're watching Overdrive. Now, keeping very integral questions like space, features, performance and range, should the Harrier EV be your next EV or also your very first? Well, it's time to find out.
Now out on the open road, in everyday situations, whether it's traffic or say if you're on an empty road like this, it's quite heartening to see that the Harrier EV is pretty easy to just live with. It's not intimidating. That's 313 combined horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque. So if you're not used to that kind of performance, that's not really a problem. You sort of learn the ropes with this car. Now I'm driving this in the boost mode and picking up speed. It's not too sharp or jerky or just intimidating in any way.
The Harrier EV makes 158 PS from its front motor and 238 PS from the rear. The power and torque outputs change with the drive modes, but the Harrier EV remains consistent and smooth in all of them. The Eco mode is useful enough for the everyday, but the city mode seems to be a good default choice for most conditions.
Now while the motor itself is quite well calibrated, I would have liked Tata Motors to have worked a bit more on just refining the sort of interactions that you have with the car. By that I mean, say, the throttle response. So while the motor itself is acting very naturally, you do find that sometimes it becomes a bit difficult for you to maintain a steady speed or really see that the car fully sort of reacts quickly enough to your inputs.
As for that claimed 0 to 100 kmph time of 6.3 seconds, we think the Harrier EV will come quite close to it. There's a strong surge of torque as the motor winds up in the boost mode, but again the Harrier EV feels linear and manageable in these straight line runs.
But when you start going quicker, you do realize that all-wheel drive system is giving you a lot of grip. So while we haven't driven this car on, say, a hilly road, even on these highways, those sweeping sort of corners, you do find that there's enough grip holding you in place. That being said, at about 125, 130, you do notice that there's quite some vibrations coming in through the wheel and just from the surface. But that again comes down to that whole refinement aspect. If I'm paying over 30 lakhs for a car, I do expect a certain degree of plushness in the vehicle, which in some respects the Harrier EV is not quite able to give me.
Tata Motors says you should be able to do at least 460 kilometers in the real world in this dual motor version with its 75 kilowatt-hour battery pack. The MIDC range for this variant is 622 kilometers. The Harrier EV can charge at up to 120 kilowatts using a DC fast charger. A good tech intervention here is the DrivePay app that lets you navigate to, charge and pay at charging stations right from your car screen. You won't need to fiddle through a host of apps on your phone.
Now a lot of work has gone into the chassis of the Harrier to turn it into the Harrier EV, and one of the more important of these, or one of the more notable changes, is at the rear suspension, where it's now independent, multi-link and with frequency selective damping. And I must say that you do notice the effects of that immediately. It does feel a more refined, a more modern, a more smoother ride, especially when you're on a smoother, calmer road. And yes, the 19-inch wheels, they do give it a slightly firm edge, which you do notice over broken patches and even say on a slightly abrupt speed breaker. I must say that it's very well sort of muted out, so it won't jar you in the cabin. You will still have a soft edge to it, which makes the whole experience quite comfortable.
The feel that you get from the steering of the Harrier EV is not very precise for what you expect in this segment, which seems to amplify this sense. Yes, the drive modes change heft, but you do feel that a more direct connection is missing. Of course, at lower speeds in traffic, this does come in handy to navigate in tight spaces. That being said, the braking feel is confident. It's not too jerky, and the regen and friction brakes seem to work as one. The regen levels are well defined too. The first level feels the most natural, but again, it's never too abrupt with its deceleration in the higher modes. There is no one-pedal driving, however. Priced at Rs 29 lakh ex-showroom for the empowered quad-wheel drive 75 variant, we wish the Harrier EV felt a bit more refined at this price. Tata Motors does say some of the niggles we faced could be specific to our test vehicles. Either way, the Harrier EV is about as tech-packed as cars get, has a comfortable cabin, is blisteringly quick, and retains that tough, plush ride that makes the Harrier so favourable for our roads.
Well, it's time for you to head into your final commercial break, but don't go anywhere, because on the other side we drive the Tesla Model Y in Mumbai city. Welcome back, you're with us on Overdrive. Now, Tesla cars worldwide are known for their technological prowess, and the Model Y is the car they decided to debut with in India. So we decided to drive it in Mumbai city to find out just how well it drives in Indian conditions.
So far, the iPhone has been your go-to status symbol to show that you made it in life. But thankfully, that can change now, because the Tesla Model Y has finally launched in India. Now, that should be reason enough for you to want to get one, but it also helps that it's priced well. But either way, I need to put food on the table, so let me tell you what the Tesla Model Y actually feels like in the best that Indian roads have to offer.
This new look for the Model Y, drawn from the Cybertruck, gives it a clean, neo-futuristic vibe that's quite different from anything else you will find at this price. It's not flashy in the traditional sense, but it does have size on its side. Surprisingly, the sharp low nose doesn't have a Tesla badge on it, and even the lighting and surfaces are devoid of much flash or aggression.
Now the Tesla Model Y gives you a massive 116-litre frunk. I think that's probably one of the biggest in this segment. But what that means is you can carry a good amount of stuff in here. Of course, you can carry a few backpacks, but even a small trolley will fit quite easily, and it's good practicality. You have these ridges here so things won't move around too much, and even a small drain plug. So if you're carrying, say, wet clothes, or you just put some ice in to chill a few drinks, whatever you want to do, all of that is possible right in here.
In profile, the Model Y's aggressively arched roofline is quite noticeable. The dark 19-inch wheels are chunky, and the design goes with the futuristic sense of the car. You might think of the Model Y as an SUV, but ground clearance is 167 mm, a bit less than what you might expect from one. So you still get a flat, sporty stance. One of the most striking design elements on the Model Y is the indirect light bar at the rear. It looks posh and is an innovative trick to stand out. The duck-tail spoiler on the high boot seems to be there for aero efficiency. The rear light cluster has that modern 3-dimensional look to it, and the chunky bumper adds some presence.
Now the Model Y has an absolutely massive 938-litre boot. As you can see, this is with all 5 seats up. It's fully flat. You can put, I guess, more than a weekend's worth of luggage here. But here's the fun part. There is another sub space here, and you might be wondering what I'm carrying. This is the cover for the boot, and that fits perfectly in. So that hassle has been fully dealt with, and this space itself will hold at least a couple of trolleys. So space is not a problem, and if even that wasn't enough, you can power fold both these seats down fully and get up to or more than 2,138 liters. Now with this whole minimal theme that you get from a Tesla, it really comes through when you sit inside this cabin. You have this panoramic view out. There's very simple shapes. The dash is nearly flat. You have sharp edges. There's literally not a button in sight aside from the few that you have on the steering wheel to control the absolute most important functions. This whole thing is an air vent. There are no separate vents, and the way it's sort of integrated in is really quite nice.
The centerpiece of the Model Y's cabin is the 15.4-inch touchscreen. Its size is now par for the course, but few rivals can match how deeply you interact with it. Nearly all of the car's functions are accessed through here, right down to the drive selector. Yes, it can be overwhelming at first, but you quickly realize that this is one of the more fluid, intuitive interfaces you will come across. Display is rich and responsive with the menus logically laid out. While driving, the most important functions are within easy reach. The live vehicle graphic holds some common controls around the car, although we wish the climate controls were in a larger fixed panel at the bottom. The lack of a driver's instrument cluster is a bit disconcerting at first, but greatly improves visibility, although a head-up display could have been a good addition. The front seats are impressive. You have great contouring and thigh support, and unlike the rest of the Model Y's controls, the seats have the usual physical adjustment buttons on the sides. The cushioning is quite soft, which we hope won't affect long distance comfort. It's India ready with a strong ventilation and heating function. You get two Type-C chargers in the front, and the large door bins continue with the practical sense. An odd trait in the Model Y is that you adjust steering and mirrors via the scrollers on the wheel. Thankfully, the steering wheel is traditionally shaped and not a yoke as in the Cybertruck. Also, you get an indicator stalk and not buttons on the wheel for it. Here's a look at all the features the Model Y offers. The India-spec Tesla Model Y will not get full self-driving, but will come with the kind of level 2 ADAS features we are accustomed to in this segment for an additional ₹6 lakh. These will be rolled out via updates once the cars hit the roads. Safety is a strong Tesla attribute, with the Model Y scoring a high score 5-star Euro NCAP rating.
Now the Model Y is based on a born electric platform, and of course you have a lot of efficiencies, and it really does show in the backseat. Now the 2890mm wheelbase, that's quite long for this segment or this size of car, and a lot of it has been put into creating a nice space here. Now yes, this is the dark cabin. It does sort of make you feel a little hemmed in, but you can pay extra to get that all white cabin, which I think will add to that sense of space. But anyway, as it stands, this massive glass area and these quite large windows, they give you that sense of openness that you get in the front as well, so that helps. As you can see, I have a lot of place to just tuck my feet in. These seats are pretty high up, the place pretty high up, a good deal of knee room. These seats are set to my driving position, and I also must say that these seats, they have this soft cushy feel to them. I don't know how they will be over a longer journey, but as it stands, they are nice and softly padded. I also get this recline function, and as you can see, I can really stretch myself out to a good extent. Now coming to the kind of amenities you have here, you have this 8-inch touchscreen, and you can do a load of stuff in it. You can play a lot of the games such as Beach Buggy, Fallout Shelter, all of that you have here. You can play a lot of your YouTube, Netflix. You can even connect Bluetooth headphones to it, so that's going to be fun for whoever's sitting here. Other than that, you have your AC controls. Even the vents here are controlled right through the screen. You have your seat controls to fold these seats. Even the recline function can be done with this, and this is a heated seat, so you have that function as well.
Tesla is famously secretive about its car specs, although it has revealed that this Model Y rear-wheel drive has a 500km WLTP range. In our short time with it, we think over 400 kilometers can be easily expected in urban conditions in the real world. It seems like this rear-wheel drive variant is fed by a 63 kWh battery pack and can accept up to 175 kilowatts of DC fast charging. Tesla will set up its supercharger network over time in Mumbai and Delhi first, eventually expanding into other cities. The Model Y uses a CCS2 plug in India, so it should be compatible with existing charging infrastructure. An AC wall box will be provided for home charging, where the Tesla charges at 11 kilowatt.
Now the first thing that strikes you as soon as you start driving this Model Y is just how quiet it is on the inside. It's a loud, noisy day as it usually is in peak Mumbai traffic, but you seem to be sort of cocooned from it really quite well. This is just as good as, or if not a lot better than, some of the luxury brands that Tesla is competing with in our market.
Not having an instrument cluster is a bit odd at first, but you soon get used to the screen readout that falls in your broader line of sight. Tesla doesn't quote power or talk numbers, but it is understood that the Model Y rear-wheel drive makes 299 PS and 420 Nm. Tesla has said that the rear-wheel drive will do 0 to 100 in 5.9 seconds, which makes this quite a brisk car for our roads.
You do get 3 steering modes as well, light, standard and heavy. Now the light mode I think is best suited for very low speed parking maneuvers and so on. The standard mode I think is the sort of default go-to mode where it adds a bit of heft. Now the steering could have done with a bit more precision.
It's quite dead on center, but it seems to weigh up aggressively as you turn in.
Now for this India-spec Model Y, Tesla has worked on tuning the suspension to our conditions. It runs on 19-inch wheels, and yes, as you might expect, there is a bit of firmness, especially on the kind of uneven surfaces that we usually have in our cities. So while it can get a bit noisy at times, you notice that the car itself remains largely level. It's not jarring, it doesn't sort of come through into the cabin. So in that sense, especially with that great sound deadening, you have that sense of being cocooned in a space exactly like how you might want in a luxury car, which makes for a nice elevated experience.
Priced at Rs 59.89 lakh onwards for this base rear-wheel drive version, the Tesla Model Y seems to make sense in its segment. Yes, it charges a premium, but you get a fresh, smart experience in the cabin, equally smart looks, and a tech package that seems as well sorted as you might want in a car. It could have had slightly more direct steering, but is comfortable, refined, and offers a kind of elevated, tech-forward experience that reminds one of another piece of high-quality equipment, the iPhone.
Well, with that, we've run out of time on this week's episode of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through our various social media platforms. You can write to us on YouTube as well. We'll see you next week. Until then, drive and ride safe.